Good morning, my name is Lars, and I have the privilege of working at Oracle, where I run the agency partnerships at Oracle Advertising. And with me today is my good buddy, Nobles Crawford.
And with my good friend Lars Feely, who's moderating this amazing interview. I'm Nobles Crawford. I am the Assistant Vice President of Consumer Activation at L'Oreal over brands of Prada, Valentino, Victor and Rolf, and Mugler. I run their media and also all of their interactive experiential activations.
That was awesome. Do you have that like memorized in your head, like all those different
It's like kind of there.
Because it was like, boom, it was right off the top.
I've done a few of these.
Dude, I like that. That was awesome. That was awesome. Okay, today we're here to talk about creating consumer connections through the digital lens, which I feel like is a big part of your role.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's got to be pretty challenging. I mean, if I look at it,
you've got to have a lot of data to be able to support that. Not that I'm trying to pitch Oracle here, but data becomes a big part about understanding your connection to your consumers. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
So basically, when we think about data, it's how do we want to use data first is your approach. You don't want to be crippled by it, like I've seen a lot of marketers be. There's so much that they either way over segment their audience, or they're just not even able to really know who they want to go after because everything is out there for them. So before we actually start working with data, we have to know exactly what we want to accomplish. Like, what is the effectiveness there that we're trying to get from being able to segment an audience? And is segmenting even like the right thing to do? And if we want to do it, how? Is it by culture? Is it by demo? Is it by interest? And once we really get like a good vision of who we want to go for from a consumer, then we try to match it up with the proper companies that can help us get to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's talk a little bit about those demos. I mean, the first that comes to mind, Gen Z versus millennials. Do you care which one is the right one?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So beauty right now is really focused on Gen Z. And with this crowd right now, in terms of their disposable income, we don't really know much about them or their behavior. COVID changed everything that we know about consumer behavior right now. Not only did it increase to a hyper level that technology really kind of pushed, but at the same time too, it really changed us from a purchase behavior perspective. And Gen Z, I think, is like the nucleus of this consumer change. And so as we go after them, and also still millennials too, a very massive, demographic, especially from a purchase behavior perspective. But how do we weigh those two, especially considering we don't really know much about the Gen Z market and how it really affects millennials. So data really helps us kind of, and the way that we segment data is the better thing to say. Like when we choose the data that we want to see to help us figure out like what those relationships are between those generations, and also find out in reaction, unfortunately, how those folks tick when it comes to consumer behavior. I'm really working on being proactive and being like leading culture in that regard from a purchase behavior. And obviously the way we use data helps us out there too.
Got it, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so you're trying to find the right difference in your marketing campaigns between Gen Z, millennials. You know the money's in millennials. You know you need to go after Gen Z if I'm hearing you right.
Because the energy is there.
Because the energy, which makes a lot of sense. But where's the share of wallet? And you don't know that answer yet. So you're trying to figure out how to push culture versus share of wallet.
Yes,
fair?
Very fair,
How do you get the right attention? How do you get that attention out of those people?
Well, it's kind of taking your eye back from performance only for a second, because a lot of folks, when they think about data, they get very into performance very quickly.
Sure.
Data is really good to analyze culture too, and that's really one of the biggest ways I use it. I use data more as a research tool than I use as like a targeting technology for my ads. And when we look at it as a research tool and you're able to see the beats of culture, you're able to really kind of understand that it's not necessarily, especially when it comes to Gen Z, it's not necessarily a funnel that we have to push them down. Again, like the technological behavior post-COVID has changed us in that regard. Instead, I like to use digital to create a sphere of influence, I like to call it, where we want to be around the consumer, not pushing the consumer. And when you create the conditions of effectiveness around them, you allow them to jump out at any time to purchase. And so it could be a very quick, Instagram ad where they don't even know the brand and they buy it. I'm sure that happens with a lot of people. To an actual luxury product that they might do research behind, like for us, like the olive factories and scent notes of our fragrances. And then there's some people that just buy it because they know us as a brand and they just like jump out immediately. So the sphere of influence, if you're creating the culture, if you're invited into the culture of your consumer by creating things that they gravitate towards, and then that is your sphere of influence, but then you have your digital capabilities around it, you'll be ready for whenever they decide to convert. But it's not about conversion, it's about being invited into their culture.
That's really interesting. So being invited into their culture, you've got to do that in a way where it's valuable. You're not you're breaking through the clutter for sure, but it's something that is normal in their world. It's something that feels genuine in their world.
Exactly.
But that has to come with attention. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how do you get the attention of the Gen Zs, the attention of the millennials? Where does the money come from? And then I guess most importantly is, how are you, I mean, you're still responsible, like take a step back, you're still responsible for the effectiveness of your advertising. You have money to spend. How are you spending it across? I think that's a pretty complex ecosystem we just talked about, and that's just 2 targets for your brand. Help me understand your attention, your effectiveness. Where are we?
I knew you'd be an amazing moderator for this. We've known each other for a long time, and you just freaking hit the freaking nail on the head here. I'm really trying to keep it PG for the YouTube audience out there. I like to call it attentive engagement, and basically, like what this is, you know, you have many different shades of awareness, is what I'm going to call it for now, because I'm not even going to use the funnel language here, because again, I even though it's good for some things, I think for the conversation we're having, I want to kind of keep within the sphere of influence here. But attentive engagement, creating experiences for Gen Z, like that is what my job as a marketer needs to do. Because as I was saying, and as you know, you kind of repeated back, the energy is with Gen Z, the money is with millennials, and millennials. It's such a big demo that there are millennials with, you know, Gen Z kids right now. And so, like, you know, when you kind of weigh the balance between those, like, we know that, you know, cost per, the video completion rate, view through rate, these are all things trying to quantify attention in your reporting metrics. But really, like, attention, like, it can be very different. There can be exposure attention, where it's like more of a reminder. There can be attentive engagement, which is more where it's like they're actually like IRL, like either working with your brand, spending major time with them, or there's just standard, you know, basically reach awareness. And kind of thinking about like where your budget goes between, like, at least for me, those 3 pillars. That's how I plan my go-to-market approach when I try to create the energy with Gen Z. I really focus on attentive engagement, creating those like IRL experiences that get then socially amplified, where my data can kick in, and then you help that to create my sphere around the millennials, because they're going to jump out using technology at any time. So it's like, it's a kind of ladder from like engagement to attention to conversion. So it's kind of going opposite and out. And when I think about like my modern go-to-market strategy, that's how I kind of weigh my budget balance in terms of where my money's going.
I love that. That's so awesome. Let me make sure I'm playing something back to you. I think you're saying, but it feels like, you know, before, if we talk old terminology, right? Awareness driving, top of funnel. Let's make sure that they're aware. Let's get ourselves in a consideration set, and let's make them purchase. So I hear you saying micro moments, and you said IRL. So are you talking, you know, moments in a specific location? And how do you, like, talk to me about how you tie, you know, your top level, you know, programmatic buys, all awareness driving into that, or are you not? Like,
dude,
where's effectiveness?
Micro moments hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Creating micro moments in cities that matter to your bottom line is really a great use of money. It's risky because measuring things out of home IRL, it's not really fully quantifiable, to be quite honest. I mean, unless you're using promo codes or something like that, and we don't do that in Couture. We don't do that for Prada and Valentino. So there is no tie back to those kinds of things. The best we can hope for is to generate social impressions from the micro moments that we create. But again, when you create those social like amplification, or even like video amplification, you can make a video of the moment and then pump it on video on video distribution platforms. So either between video or social, the data layer will always kick in, even if that micro moment only had a reach of like 800 people, 200 people, but you can use the data to amplify, to find those same people out and bring those people into that experience in a digital platform. And like, and so, yeah, like funding micro moments, even though they might not be mass reach, is so important, because you need to, especially with Gen Z, because experience is currency. That is how they are able to not only like build their rank among their peer group, and we know how important that is from a social media perspective with this demographic right now, but also too, when they're in the aisle and they're spending mom's money or dad's money or something, how are they going to remember the brand, like the actual brand? Because you can convert on Instagram without knowing your brand. You don't know how my fragrance smells on Instagram. So when they're in Sephora or they're in Ulta, like, what do I have to rest on that they're going to choose me over some of my competitors that I will not name on this? But you can probably know them, competitors of Prada and Valentino, which is a very highly competitive industry.
Sure.
what I think separates me from my competitors are the experiences that I give, because that experience is currency. And when they're walking in with the new Valentino lipstick and they saw us activate at Coachella, but this person lives in Oklahoma, but they were able to experience what we were able to activate there because we had a rich digital activation that we were able to find them with our ad to get them to this rich digital activation through our targeting. Like, that is when you're able to use data to push out your experiences and bring more people in versus using it as a purchase push.
Yep.
You want to use it as an experience push.
That makes perfect sense. Pull. Okay, can I dumb it down? I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like you're driving FOMO. You want an experience, right? You want someone in Oklahoma. Yes. Like, if I were to take your words back, right? I'm in Oklahoma. I wish I had been at that location, that micro moment.
But you can have a piece of it,
but I can buy this. And something else you said, which really hit for me, is like that becomes social currency.
Yes.
I care.
Yes.
I was part of this.
Exactly.
Did you just put yourself back at the top of the funnel a little bit? Because you're making micro moments, like you said, you're elevating those moments to be something that's sort of hardcore of that FOMO and I care.
That's a really great question. You're using your attentive engagement opportunities to create awareness. So you're not really starting with awareness. You're starting with
that micro thing.
That micro IRL activation. And so, like, some people, like, there's really not a category for that. Some people see it as a 360 expenditure on their media plan. Some people say it's out of home. You know, for me, I think it's more closer to conversion than it would be awareness for those 200 people that are IRL. But I use that 200 person IRL conversion, attentive engagement, activation to create my awareness umbrella. And so I'm going reverse, if you will.
Totally.
But even in reverse, I'm kind of surrounding it because I'm going to be using this for content. I'm going to be using this to understand more about my consumers to then retarget who this new consumer looks like that gravitated towards this activation. So I'm able to make a larger sphere of influence around people that weren't affected, by this activation. And then that's how I can start to like penetrate the market and run against competitors.
I feel like you're done. Other days are of go target adults 18 to 49, and then see what shakes out. Like you're saying,
you want to do that by TV.
There's too many darn people out there. I've got to go find the people who are going to care. So who are the ones that are going to care about having FOMO?
And you can pull them to you versus pushing to them, because that's just a waste of money.
No, why would you? I mean, at this point, like, you have the mechanism to micro focus.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about. I mean, that's awesome, and it feels like the sort of 2024 version of marketing. So well done, which I'm saying to a friend. So
that's too bad. That's now. I'm talking like 2030.
I love it. That's awesome. Keep doing it. No, but educate people and do more.
Of course.
I like that.
Yep. Together we will.
It feels like a challenge. It feels like, talk to us, and we'll wrap this up. But is there something that is really exciting as a challenge you see coming, or was there a challenge that you were like, we have to change the behavior, the mindset, the KPIs maybe? Because what you're talking about here is don't go your old route. I got a new way to do this. Is there something you're really proud of in the past, something you're really excited for in the future?
Yeah, I mean, at L'Oreal, we have a very strong marketing expertise, but I also think the kind of glut of data in digital has sometimes made us lazy. And so when I first joined L'Oreal almost 2.5 years ago, I was talking about engagement from the time I touched down, where it's like we have to create these micro moments to be able to win. Wasn't really an open ear, to be quite honest, because again, there's a lot of risk there. It's tougher to measure, especially if folks don't really fully believe in certain metrics that you can try to quantify a larger KPI. But I was able to take some risks in my personal capacity as assistant vice president, and we hit it. And one of those things that we did that kind of proved this early on, that got more people talking about engagement in my Lux group, is Prada Candy Crush. When I first joined, I just could not sleep. The alliteration of Prada Candy Crush, because Prada Candy was one of our fragrances. At the time, that is now it's probably one of our secondary fragrances now, but at the time it was our leading fragrance, but we were coming out with a new leading fragrance, and we had killed all the budget for Prada Candy. But we had all that social IP with the consumers there that I was like, we can't just leave them from an awareness perspective. We got to bridge them over into our new fragrance, because the Prada brand is what binds all this. And so I was like, well, what do women of the Gen Z millennial age want? And honestly, we talk about it a lot, but a lot of people don't follow follow it and actually take the risk? Casual gaming.
Right.
Casual gaming is a major tap into this audience. And you want to talk about attentive engagement, that is where it's at.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, like, how do you do it differently? And so we created, for the first time with Activision, a mini game using the Candy Crush IP, which is more of an editorial thing. That's church and state, but editorial saw the opportunity working with Prada Candy and the alliteration of Prada Candy, Candy Crush. They were all about it. And then we found the moment, the micro moment to drop it during Thanksgiving, when a lot of women are just like kind of, you know, fed up with their parents-in-law or with, you know, their siblings or something, and they're on the couch and they're playing casual games. And then we threw an incentive on it, on the mini game, and we let them get free Prada Candy samples. All these things being considered, we thought this campaign would last 2 weeks. It lasted 48 hours. Really, it lasted 24. We were out of samples within 28 hours.
Amazing.
They were supposed to last 2 weeks. We went through 40,000 samples in less than 24 hours, basically. So we had to shut it down. But it was an amazing, successful experience. And we used the data that we collected from that, because they had to fill out 5 forms of data to use and then parlay those people into Prada Paradox, which was our new fragrance. And then we had the most successful female fragrance launch in L'Oreal history with Prada Paradox.
Dude, it sounds to me like you were creating consumer connections to the digital end.
Bing, 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 bing.
Congratulations. That was awesome. Great job, bud. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.